The desperate plea. The great hall of the Galactic Council stretched wider than any city on Earth. Inside this massive chamber, over 300 alien species gathered in terror. Their voices mixed into a storm of panic. Clicks, whistles, and sounds no human throat could make. Ambassador Kane stood at humanity's small platform. He was a tall man with gray hair and cold blue eyes. While aliens around him shook with fear, Kane remained perfectly still. His calmness made the nearby aliens even more nervous. "The Devourers have taken another system!" screamed the Hive Queen. Her 1,000 eyes wept green tears. "The Beta-7 cluster is gone. 12 billion of my children are dead." The crystalline beings from Andromeda chimed in harmony, their bodies flashing red with distress. "They consume everything. Planets, moons, even asteroids. Nothing remains but empty space." A gas cloud entity floated above the council, its form shifting with anxiety. 20 systems in 3 months. They grow stronger with each world they eat. "We must act." The council speaker, a massive whale-like creature floating in a water sphere, made a deep rumbling sound. "We have tried everything. Our combined fleets lost 8,000 ships in the last battle. The Devourers adapted to our weapons. They learned too quickly." Kane watched it all without expression. His assistant, a young woman named Park, whispered data into his ear. He nodded slightly but said nothing. The silicon-based rock creatures from the outer rim scraped their bodies together in frustration. "Where are the famous human warriors we heard about?" "You have only 12 colonies! The Zenith Empire has 15,000 worlds, yet even they cannot stop the Devourers." Finally, Kane stepped forward. The entire council fell silent. Humans rarely spoke in these meetings. "The Devourers have been in our database for 3 years, Kane said simply. The council erupted. Hundreds of voices shouted at once. The speaker had to release a sonic pulse to restore order. "You knew?" The Hive Queen's voice cracked with rage. "You knew and did nothing while billions died?" Kane's face remained stone-like. "We knew, we watched. We prepared? Prepared?" The whale speaker's voice boomed through the water. "Your entire species has fewer warships than a single Zenith battle group. What could you possibly prepare?" A thin smile crossed Kane's face. It was not a pleasant smile. "You spent centuries keeping humanity locked in a small corner of space. You called us too violent, too dangerous. You said our history of war made us unfit for expansion." The council members shifted uncomfortably. Many remembered voting for those restrictions. "But you never asked why we accepted those restrictions so easily," Kane continued. "You never wondered what Earth was doing while you celebrated keeping the dangerous humans contained." Park handed Kane a small device. He pressed it, and a hologram appeared above the council floor. It showed a map of human space, but something was different. Hidden behind each colony were massive structure markers that hadn't been there before. "What are those?" asked a tentacled diplomat from the water world of Aquarius. "Insurance," Kane replied. "You fear human violence, yet now you face extinction. How interesting that you come begging to the species you tried to cage," the Hive Queen buzzed angrily. "This is no time for human pride. Will you help or not?" Kane looked around the room slowly. Every alien eye, sensor, and detection organ focused on him. "There is something called the Predator Fleet Protocol," Kane said quietly. The universal translators struggled with the word predator, creating uncomfortable sounds in various alien languages. "Predator?" The crystal beings chimed nervously. "What does this mean?" "It means," Kane said, his voice dropping lower, "that humanity never stopped being what we are. We simply learned to hide it better." The hologram changed. It showed Earth, and deep beneath the planet's surface, something massive began to stir. Lights activated in patterns across hidden facilities. The image shifted to Mars, where entire mountains opened to reveal vast shipyards. In the asteroid belt, what looked like mining stations transformed into military bases. "For 50 years you kept us caged. For 50 years we built. Not the pretty ships you expected. Not the diplomatic vessels you approved. We built something else." The council chamber fell deathly silent. "We built the nightmare fleet that our ancestors dreamed of. The fleet that would make our old wars look like gentle games." The vote was called. For the first time in galactic history, the decision was unanimous. Humanity was unleashed. The awakening beast, deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, space itself seemed to wake up. What looked like dead rocks for 50 years suddenly split open. Massive doors, each one 5 kilometers wide, ground apart to reveal darkness deeper than space itself. Admiral Ross stood on the command bridge of Station Alpha. He was an old soldier, 70 years old, but his eyes burned with the fire of a young warrior. His hand hovered over a red button that hadn't been touched in 5 decades. "All stations, this is Admiral Ross," he spoke into the communication system. "Authorization code, Apex Predator. Time to wake up our sleeping giants." He pressed the button. Across the solar system, lights began to flicker on. Not the gentle blue lights of civilian ships or the white lights of exploration vessels. These were red lights. Angry lights, hungry lights. From the asteroid hangars, ships began to emerge. The first one out made nearby observation drones from other species immediately retreat in fear. It was 1 kilometer long, painted black so dark it seemed to eat light itself. Its hull wasn't smooth like alien ships. It was covered in armor plates, weapon ports, and sharp angles that looked like teeth. The ship's name appeared on scanners. Reaper. Behind it came more. Hellhound. Nightmare. Bone Crusher. Deathwalker. Each name made the alien translators work harder, struggling to find words in their languages for such dark concepts. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the Hellhound, watching his crew wake up systems that had been sleeping for decades. Lee was young for a captain, only 40, but he had trained his whole life for this moment. "Sir," his weapons officer, Lieutenant Smith, called out. "All weapon systems online. We have 12 nuclear launchers, 40 plasma cannons, and—" He paused, grinning. "The special packages. The special packages. Weapons so terrible that Earth's government had hidden them even from their own people. An alien liaison officer had been assigned to each human ship. On the Hellhound, it was a small, furry creature named Pip from the peaceful world of Garden. Pip's 4 eyes went wide as he read the weapon specifications. "Captain Lee," Pip squeaked. "These weapons, half of them are banned by galactic law. Antimatter bombs? Virus missiles? Planet cracker torpedoes?" Lee turned to look at the small alien. "Galactic law was made by species who never faced extinction. We humans have faced it many times. We learned that when death comes for you, you don't fight fair. You fight to win." Across the solar system, more ships emerged. The count was staggering. 200 battleships, each one a kilometer long. 500 cruisers heavily armed and armored. 3,000 destroyers fast and vicious. And surrounding them all, like a swarm of angry wasps, 50,000 fighter drones controlled by artificial intelligence. But these AI systems were not like the logical, calm AI the aliens used. Humans had programmed them differently. They had studied Earth's greatest predators, wolves, sharks, lions, even ancient dinosaurs. The AI thought like a hunter. It knew how to stalk, how to corner, how to kill. Admiral Ross watched the fleet gather around Jupiter. The planet's great red storm seemed small compared to the mass of dark ships forming up in attack formations. "Admiral," his aide, Commander Black, reported, "all ships accounted for. The Predator fleet is fully operational." Ross nodded. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "Ladies and gentlemen, for 50 years we've been the galaxy's sleeping dog. They thought they had us trained. They thought we were tamed. Today we show them what humans really are." A roar went up from every ship. Not the polite acknowledgement of alien fleets, but a primal sound of excitement. These were not diplomats or explorers. These were warriors who had been held back too long. The alien observer from the Galactic Council, a tall, thin creature named Vex, transmitted back to the council chambers. His voice shook as he reported, "The human fleet is terrifying. Their ships look like weapons themselves. No beauty, no elegance, just pure destruction. And the humans, they're smiling. They're actually happy about going to war." Back in the council chambers, the assembled aliens watched the feed in stunned silence. The Hive Queen's 1,000 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep distress. "What have we unleashed?" she whispered. Ambassador Kane, still standing at his platform, answered coldly. "You've unleashed humanity's true nature. You wanted guard dogs. You got wolves. The fleet began to move. Jupiter's gravity barely affected them as they accelerated to speeds that should have been impossible for such massive ships. The secret was revealed. Each ship had multiple fusion cores, enough power to run a small moon. As they reached the edge of the solar system, Admiral Ross gave one final order. All ships, prepare for jump. Destination, devourer space. Mission, total annihilation. Space itself seemed to scream as 200 jump portals opened at once. The Predator fleet vanished into them, leaving only gravity waves that made every alien monitoring station in 3 systems sound alarms. The hunt had begun. First contact with death. The Predator fleet burst out of jump space at the edge of the dead zone, a region of space where 12 star systems used to exist. Now only empty darkness remained. The Devourers had eaten everything, leaving nothing but void. Admiral Ross looked at the tactical display. 30 Devourer ships hung in space ahead, each one the size of a small moon. They were not beautiful ships. They looked like massive tumors of metal and flesh covered in tentacles and mouths. These monsters ate entire worlds, breaking them down into raw materials to grow larger. "Sir," Lieutenant Smith reported from the sensor station. "The Devourers are sending communication signals. They want to talk." Ross turned to look at him. "Talk? Did they talk to the 12 billion they ate last week?" "No, sir. Then neither do we." "All ships, attack pattern Wolfpack, no mercy." No hesitation. "Kill them all." The human fleet moved like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of forming neat battle lines like civilized species, they scattered into hunting groups. 5 ships here, 10 ships there, moving in seemingly random patterns that actually followed ancient pack hunting strategies. The first human ship to fire was the Bone Crusher. Captain Taylor, a woman with scars covering half her face, gave the order with a savage grin. "Fire everything." The space between the humans and Devourers suddenly filled with death. Nuclear missiles, antimatter torpedoes, and kinetic kill vehicles launched in waves. But that was just the distraction. While the Devourers focused on the incoming missiles, smaller human ships had already moved behind them. The Night Terror dropped out of stealth mode directly beneath a Devourer vessel. Captain Brown didn't hesitate. "Deploy the package." A single black cylinder fired from the ship. It attached to the Devourer's hull and began to eat through it. Not with explosions or lasers, but with nanobots. Microscopic robots that consumed metal and flesh alike, turning the enemy ship into more nanobots. The Devourer ship began to scream. Yes, scream! These biomechanical monsters could feel pain, and the entire galaxy heard it over open channels. The alien observers, watching from safe distance, were horrified. Commander Vex reported back to the Galactic Council, his voice shaking. "The humans, they're not fighting. They're hunting, like predators playing with prey." Indeed, the human ships seemed to be enjoying themselves. Communication channels between human vessels were filled with laughter, betting on kill counts, and ancient Earth music, mostly heavy metal and war drums. The Devourer ships tried to respond. They fired bioplasma weapons that had melted entire alien fleets. But human ships didn't dodge gracefully like other species. They charged straight through the fire, their heavy armor glowing red-hot but holding. The Hellhound took 3 direct hits that would have vaporized any alien vessel. Captain Lee just laughed. "Is that all? My ship has armor made from compressed asteroid material." "You'll need to do better than that." The Hellhound responded by ramming directly into a Devourer vessel at full speed. The human ship's reinforced prow, shaped like a massive spear, punched through the enemy's hull. Then, while stuck inside the enemy ship, the Hellhound deployed boarding teams. Lieutenant Johnson led the boarding party. 20 humans in power armor that made them look like metal giants, carrying weapons that shouldn't exist, flamethrowers that burned at the temperature of stars, gravity hammers that could crush a tank, and worse things. The inside of the Devourer ship was a nightmare of organic corridors and screaming biomechanical defenses. The humans walked through it like they were taking a stroll. "Remember, people," Johnson said over comms, his flamethrower turning a wave of defense organisms into ash. "These things ate 12 billion people last week. No mercy." The boarding team planted antimatter charges throughout the ship's biological core. They had 10 minutes to get out. They made it in 5. The Devourer ship died from the inside out, exploding in a flower of nuclear fire that could be seen from 3 light-years away. Meanwhile, the Reaper demonstrated why it had that name. Captain White, the oldest combat veteran in the fleet, used tactics from ancient Earth naval battles. His ship fired broadside after broadside, using old-fashioned kinetic weapons, basically massive metal slugs fired at incredible speed. "You don't need fancy weapons to kill," White told his crew. "You just need to hit them hard enough." The battle continued for 18 hours. The Devourers tried everything. They tried to retreat. Human ships were faster. They tried to surrender. Humans had turned off their translation systems. They tried to merge together into a superorganism. Humans just brought out bigger bombs. When it ended, all 30 Devourer ships were dead. Floating chunks of meat and metal drifted through space, some pieces still twitching. The human fleet had lost 37 ships, but each human death was met not with mourning, but with rage. Admiral Ross surveyed the battlefield. His face showed no satisfaction, no joy, just cold determination. "Send this message to the Devourer Empire," he ordered. "This was just our greeting. The real fleet is coming." The alien observers were confused. This was the real fleet, wasn't it? Then their sensors picked up something else. Back at Earth, 3 times as many ships were powering up. The Galactic Council watched the footage of the battle in complete silence. Even the warrior species, who prided themselves on combat, looked sick. The crystal beings chimed in fear. They enjoyed it. The humans enjoyed the killing. Ambassador Kane stood unmoved. "We told you we were predators. You didn't believe us. Now you know." The Hive Queen spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "What have we done?" "You survived," Kane replied. "Be grateful. The Devourers won't." The hunter becomes the hunted. The Devourer Empire's response came 3 days later. 10,000 ships emerged from dark space, blotting out the stars. Each vessel was larger than the ones destroyed before. Ancient monsters that had consumed entire civilizations. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of hunger and death. Admiral Ross watched them arrive on his tactical display. He didn't look worried. He looked satisfied. "They brought everything," he said to his command staff. "Perfect." Captain Lee voiced what others were thinking. "Sir, that's 10,000 ships against our 600 remaining vessels." Ross smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Captain, have you ever heard of persistence hunting?" The room fell silent. Every human knew the term. Their ancestors on Earth had hunted this way, not by being faster or stronger, but by never stopping. By chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. "All ships," Ross commanded, "begin tactical retreat. Pattern Zulu!" The human fleet turned and ran. The Galactic Council, watching from their chambers, erupted in panic. The crystal beings flashed frantically. "The humans are fleeing! We're doomed!" But Ambassador Kane still stood calm. "Watch," he said simply. The Predator fleet retreated in perfect order, staying just ahead of the Devourer armada. The massive enemy fleet gave chase, confident in their coming victory. They didn't notice the small devices human ships dropped behind them, tiny black spheres that floated silent in space. For 6 hours, the chase continued. The Devourers grew more confident, more spread out, more careless. Their formation, once perfect, began to stretch as faster ships pulled ahead. Then Admiral Ross gave the order. "Spring the trap." The black spheres activated. Each one was a gravity mine, creating artificial singularities that pulled Devourer ships off course. Suddenly, the neat formation became chaos. Ships collided with each other. Some were pulled into the gravity wells and crushed, and that's when the human fleet stopped running. They turned as one, like a pack of wolves that had led prey into a canyon. But they didn't attack the main fleet. No, they did something worse. Small groups of human ships began hitting the edges. 5 ships would appear, destroy a Devourer vessel, and vanish before help arrived. Then they'd appear somewhere else, kill again, and disappear. Captain Brown of the Night Terror perfected this strategy. Her ship would drop out of stealth, fire all weapons, and jump away in less than 30 seconds. The Devourers never knew where she'd strike next. "This is how humans hunted mammoth," she told her crew. Not by fighting the whole herd, by cutting out the weak ones one at a time. The psychological effect was devastating. Devourer ships began to cluster together for protection, which only made them easier targets for nuclear area effect weapons. They tried to spread out, which made them vulnerable to pack attacks. Colonel Black, commanding a squadron of stealth bombers, deployed humanity's most terrible weapon yet. Not a bomb or a missile, but a biological agent designed specifically for the Devourers. "You eat biological matter," Black said as he watched the virus deploy. "Let's see how you like eating something that eats you back." The virus, codenamed Karma, spread through the Devourer fleet through their own feeding tentacles. It turned their greatest strength, their ability to consume and adapt, against them. Ships began to eat themselves, their biomechanical systems turning cancerous. The Devourers tried to adapt as they always had. But humans kept changing tactics. When the enemy adjusted to virus weapons, humans switched to gravity attacks. When they defended against gravity, humans used antimatter. When they shielded against antimatter, humans rammed them with ships filled with nuclear warheads. Commander Park coordinated the assault from the command ship. She watched as human captains competed to see who could kill more creatively. The Bone Crusher fired asteroids covered in drilling robots. The Hell's Gate created false jump points that led nowhere, trapping Devourer ships in void space. The Revenant played recordings of every species the Devourers had killed, broadcasting the death screams of trillions on all frequencies. That last tactic broke something in the Devourers. These creatures fed on fear and death, but humans had turned it into a weapon against them. For the first time in their million-year history, the Devourers felt what their victims had felt: terror. After 2 weeks of this relentless hunting, the Devourer armada was down to 3,000 ships. They huddled together in a defensive sphere, no longer attacking, just trying to survive. Then came the boarding operations. Not 1 or 2 ships, but hundreds of human vessels latched onto Devourer hulls like parasites. Thousands of human soldiers in power armor stormed through biomechanical corridors. Sergeant Miller led one such team. As he cut through defensive organisms with his energy blade, he spoke to his squad. "Remember, these things thought humans were prey. Show them they picked the wrong species." The footage of these boarding actions reached the Galactic Council. Even hardened warrior species had to look away. Humans didn't just kill the Devourers. They dismantled them. They studied them. They learned every weakness while the creatures were still alive. Finally, after 20 days of hell, the Devourer fleet sent a universal surrender signal. A message in every known language, even attempting broken English. "We yield, we surrender. Please stop. Mercy, mercy, mercy." Admiral Ross received the message on his bridge. His staff waited for his response. "Sir?" Commander Black asked. "They're surrendering." Ross looked at the tactical display. 3,000 Devourer ships remained out of 10,000. Behind them, sensors showed more Devourers gathering, the remainder of their empire, perhaps another 20,000 vessels. "They surrender?" Ross said quietly. "Did the children of the 12 billion dead get to surrender? Did the Garden World colonies get mercy when they begged?" He opened a channel to the Devourer fleet. His message was simple. "You haven't seen our real fleet yet. Surrender is not an option. Run or die. Your choice." Then he sent a signal back to Earth. Phase 2. Release the wolves. From Earth's moon, Mars, and 100 hidden bases, new ships began to emerge. Not hundreds, thousands. And these ships were different. Smaller, faster, and built for only one purpose: to hunt. The Galactic Council watched in growing horror as the tactical display updated. The human fleet hadn't been 600 ships. That was just the vanguard. The real Predator fleet was 30,000 vessels, and they were all moving toward Devourer space. The new order, the Galactic Council reconvened in emergency session. Half the member species didn't attend. They were too afraid of what they might witness. Those who did come sat in silence as they watched the live feeds from Devourer space. The human fleet had become a plague upon the Devourers. 30,000 ships moved through their empire like a swarm of locusts, but instead of eating, they were killing. System by system, world by world, the devourers were being erased. Ambassador Kane stood at his platform, watching the other species react. Some wept, some prayed to their various gods. Others simply stared in shock. The Hive Queen finally spoke. Ambassador Kane, the devourers have sent 15 surrender requests. They offer technology, resources, even servitude. Will humanity not show mercy? Kane's expression didn't change. Show me the mercy they gave to the 400 dead civilizations they consumed. But the crystal beings chimed in distress. Complete genocide? That makes humans no better than them! Admiral Ross appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from his flagship. Behind him, through the bridge windows, a devourer homeworld burned. Better? Ross laughed, but there was no humor in it. We're not trying to be better. We're trying to make sure this never happens again. He held up a data pad. 400 civilizations, 80 trillion sentient beings, 3,000 years of terror. That's what the devourers represent. And you want us to let them live? The whale speaker in its water sphere made a deep, mournful sound. But surely some can be saved? The young ones? Those who haven't killed? Captain Lee appeared on another screen. His ship was orbiting a devourer nursery world where millions of young devourers were growing. Every devourer is born from the consumed matter of dead civilizations, Lee said coldly. Their young are made from the bodies of murdered children. Tell me, which part of them deserves to live? The Council watched as human ships deployed planet cracker bombs. These weapons didn't just destroy the surface, they split worlds in half, ensuring nothing could ever live there again. A desperate message came through from the last devourer queen, the oldest and most powerful of their species. Her massive form appeared on screen, a mountain of biomechanical horror that had lived for 50,000 years. Please, she begged in broken galactic common. We can change. We can learn to survive without consuming others. Give us a chance. Just one chance, Admiral Ross personally responded. You had a chance. It was called not eating the first innocent civilization. You had another chance when you met the second peaceful species. And the third, and the 400th, your chances are over. The Queen tried one last gambit. We have knowledge of the universe's edge. We know what lies beyond the dark. Secrets that could save all life, please. For a moment, the Council held its breath. Such knowledge was priceless. Ross turned to his weapons officer. Fire everything. The last devourer homeworld died in nuclear fire. The Queen's screams echoed across subspace for 3 minutes before cutting off forever. It took 72 hours to finish the job. Every devourer ship, every station, every single organism larger than a microscopic spore was destroyed. Humans even deployed specialized hunter-killer satellites to spend the next 1,000 years searching for any possible survivors. When it was over, Admiral Ross sent a simple message to the Galactic Council. The devourer threat has been eliminated. Permanently. The council chamber erupted in a mixture of relief and horror. They were saved, but at what cost? The rock beings scraped together nervously. What happens now? Will humans return to their small corner of space? Ambassador Kane laughed. It was the first emotion he'd shown in weeks, and it terrified everyone present. Return? No. The galaxy has shown it cannot protect itself. Humanity will take on that burden. The council members began to protest, but Kane raised his hand. We're not conquering. We're not expanding by force, but we are watching. Every system, every species, every potential threat. The Predator fleet will remain active, forever. The gas cloud entities swirled in agitation. You mean to hold the entire galaxy hostage? No, Kane said. We mean to keep it safe. Whether you like our methods or not. A new figure appeared on the main screen. President Martinez of Earth, an elderly woman with steel-gray hair and harder eyes. To all species of the Galactic Council, she said, humanity makes this promise. We will be your shields against the dark. We will be the monsters that fight worse monsters. We will be the thing that goes bump in the night, but only to those who threaten innocent life. She paused, looking directly at the camera. But understand this. We are not your servants. We are not your tame pets. We are predators who choose to protect rather than hunt you. Remember that distinction. The Hive Queen, despite her fear, asked the question everyone was thinking. "And if we refuse this protection?" President Martinez smiled. It was even less pleasant than Kane's smile. "You won't, because right now, 3 hostile species are watching from beyond our galaxy's edge. They saw what happened to the Devourers and they're reconsidering their invasion plans. Without us, you'd be facing them within a decade." She let that sink in. "We've already sent them a message. 1 ship, the Nightmare." It jumped to their territory, destroyed one of their scout fleets, and left a simple message in their language. "The humans are awake. This galaxy is under our protection. Try us." The council fell silent. They realized the truth. They hadn't unleashed humanity to save them from one threat. They had awakened something that would fundamentally change the galaxy forever. Ambassador Kane delivered the final words of the session. For 3,000 years, the Devourers were the galaxy's nightmare. They're gone now. We are the new nightmare. But we're your nightmare. Remember that when you sleep safely in your beds. Remember that when your children grow up without fear of being consumed." He looked around the chamber one last time. Humanity spent 50,000 years evolving as persistence hunters. 50 years preparing for this moment. We are very good at what we do. And what we do now is protect this galaxy, whether it wants us to or not. Epilogue 5 years passed. The galaxy had changed. Pirates disappeared overnight when human patrol ships started skinning them alive. A warrior species called the Razors tried to invade 3 peaceful worlds. The Predator fleet left their entire military as floating debris. But the most telling change was in the dark spaces between galaxies. Ancient threats that had watched the Milky Way for millions of years, waiting for the right moment to strike, quietly turned their attention elsewhere. The words spread through the cosmic dark, whispered in languages older than stars. "The humans are awake. Find other prey." And in the Galactic Council, whenever a new threat emerged, the call went out immediately. Not to their own fleets, not to their allies, to Earth. Where the predators waited, eager for the hunt, the galaxy had wanted humanity's protection. Now they had it, forever. Whether they liked it or not, humanity had become the alpha predator of the Milky Way, and they were very, very good at it. The wolves now guarded the sheep. But wolves were still wolves, and everyone knew it. The end.